Done it. All right, well, we're just going to banter back and forth, Todd, because the broadcast is starting to stream. We lost our audio pre-route, which I'm sure everyone was terribly excited by. And I would try and sing, but I can't sing.
We're live.
So we are live, and we should be on the air with the Ignite edition summary curated top news from the giant Book O News that was at Ignite. I'm Doug Splinter.
I'm Todd Kidda.
And we're doing broadcast flexibility today. Todd's in a different location. He got kicked out of his theater. We're doing upgrades to ours, so all sorts of insanity around here, and an amazing week of news. I was looking, and this really should be called the Book O News episode, right? Because this is the book of news that we've started publishing. I love the Book of News, by the way.
It's the best. Yes,
and so it tells you, like, here's all the announcements on top of it. So if you want to know, like, what happened this week, well, funny you should mention that. There's 88 pages if you get rid of stuff of stuff that happened this week. So let's go through all of them.
88 pages of stuff that happened that are just really pointers to the actual stuff.
It was a little bit astonishing, right? So if you had to pick the top two things, and when we publish this post, it's going to have a link to the Book of Ignite and then just a list of our favorite things, right?
My top two things are, and it's not Office Flash Friday fodder, but if you're asking me top two things from Ignite, Azure Synapse Analytics, and then number two, Azure Synapse Analytics.
Really?
Those were my big two.
Okay.
Things.
So I'm going to borrow one from outside. I liked Arc a lot. Which is not O365, but Azure Arc. So let's stay to Office 365 and go through, because Todd and I are enterprise architects, so we like to go across the entire crazy stack of stuff that represents our portfolio on top of it. But if we were to look down through, so I don't know if you've seen the stats recently, but there's I'm not a big PowerPoint person, but there's a really good service compliance and trust presentation that came out and said there are approximately of known impactful regulatory bodies that impact enterprise customers. There are approximately 750 of them, of enterprise regulatory bodies that are serious, right?
That's
ones you got to pay attention to. And they are either promulgating specific rules, findings, or guidance, and they are doing it at a rate of approximately 200 per day. Not each one in totality. So of the 750, there's a random 200 events, and you have to figure out which ones matter to you.
Yep.
So, for a long time, and by the way, there's like, we had another MFA announcement. Did you see Brad Anderson's thing about MFA? He's like, I talked fast, but I did not stutter. MFA is free. So go read that one. That was amazing, right? Because you know how I feel about MFA. And Johnson got up and said it. We had a bunch of people send us conditional access rule screenshots. I'm getting some stickers called Office Flash Friday Best Practice Hero stickers.
Nice.
So we can send those out because they meet the minimum gifting threshold, so we will not get in trouble from anyone. So those of you who tweeted out your conditional access rules, I'm working on the design and I'm getting some stickers out because those don't offend from a giveaway standpoint. Otherwise, I hit. I was going to do something more significant, but then I hit people's gifting policies and like stickers and maybe a little digital banner you could put on LinkedIn or something like that. I don't know. But for sure, the stickers are coming out to those who hit me up. So conditional access stuff, MFA stuff, but the compliance side is becoming a huge deal because how are you going to keep up with all that?
Yep.
And so we announced the compliance score underneath security. And I absolutely love what we're doing with that because people are actually thinking about compliance as part of their security estate and portfolio. So if you haven't checked this one out, it's really, really interesting. And I admit, I had not even paid attention to the compliance blog inside of Microsoft. It's not something whose news I had been carefully following.
Okay.
But it's good content, and it really is. I always say you can be secure without being compliant without being secure. So if I had to say the one thing, I think that aside from all the feature stuff, if you go blow past the fact that yes, a number of amazing features were announced, that there was some significant philosophical work done on the security and compliance and manageability stack with the new Microsoft Endpoint Management, the ability to bring all that together under one comprehensive conditional endpoint control with MFA. So for me, that was the biggest thing. Was that security compliance management. I know it's three things, but look at the significance of that coalescence as something that really transforms the amount of work you have to do and how you do it. So there you go. That was my big thing.
Love it.
All right. Now, if I had to say specific things, obviously, I don't know how everyone's going to feel about this, but Flow got renamed. Mr. Kidda. It's now called
Power Automate.
I'm sure you're excited.
I'm beyond thrilled. Yeah.
And obviously you're going to talk through RPA and the rest of the stuff that went on top of it, and the AI builder and everything else on top of that kind of stuff.
So I do. The question though is what do you call a thing you create in Power Automate? Do we still call that a flow? I'm not sure yet, to be honest.
I don't know. We're going to have to learn some new vocabulary.
Yeah.
Someone moved our cheese, and it's time for us to study up. I don't know. I know all of the TechNet articles and everything. I shouldn't say it anymore. They coalesced the branding around that too, didn't they? For all the technical forums and everything. So there's a lot of branding alignment and fix up on stuff, that stuff. I did think there was interesting on like the secured core PC announcement. And if you didn't check it out, they also announced, we have Microsoft Managed Desktop. If you don't know, we have Microsoft Managed Desktop. So, and what it was we would go out and do assessments at customers around their boot time and the number of agents. People are taking a minute or 2 minutes to boot machines because of all the bloatware and everything else, not that we put on it or the manufacturers, but that customers were inflicting onto their own boot process. So Microsoft Managed Desktop is sort of a guaranteed performance managed environment where the things boot, and Brad Anderson did it with his production machine on stage, right? It was booted and productive at the, working on software in less than 18 seconds.
I mean, Windows boot isn't even something I think about anymore in my life.
No, but it is if you realize they released the scoring of the average boot speed of our enterprise customers, and it is not at 18 seconds. So they announced as part of like the desktop analytics, which I'm super passionate about. There's all sorts of videos and announcements on desktop analytics that we're going to be walking through a little bit over the next couple of months in more depth. But they also announced like a boot score. So what we're doing is essentially using big data analytics and AI and machine learning models and just data exploration and visualization tools to show you what's going on in your environment from a performance, security, and compliance standpoint. And we're using intelligent recommendations to say, here's how you can improve that. Here's how you can improve security. Here's how you can improve performance. Here's how you can improve manageability. Like these are all the things. And this big data, the fact that we see all these signals coming into this repository is what's letting us do it. So it's Todd's favorite domain, the data domain, that is driving these actionable outcomes from people. And that'd be my other big theme is that these are now actionable. You can go look which machines are booting up slower and what's the dominant factor in boot performance. Would you care to guess what it is from a hardware standpoint?
From a hardware perspective?
Yeah.
Is it disk?
Yeah, it's disk.
All right.
HDD versus SSD or SSD hybrid, right?
Yes.
Duh. That's the biggest delineator. So if you want your users to have X minutes back every time they boot up, then your X seconds back every single operation they do, then guess what you need to make sure that the PCs don't. Because you can go get a really cheap performance CPU and put a pig of a disk underneath it, and then it's going to work fine for things that are in memory, but anytime it has to go to disk, ain't going to happen, right? And so those are all the interesting things I thought. So the secure score integrations, that secure score expanded again and got more pervasive, which started over in Office, right, and grew to the other products around Azure Security Center integration. So the compliance score, that, and the preview of insider risk management, which I thought was really interesting because for the longest time we've been working on these external attack surfaces, right? And customers saying, well, can you now help me really get to insider threat perspective and coalescence with like events from coming in from Workday around Todd, your last day of employment is next week. So certain signals now mean a lot more. Well, it's not.
Okay.
But if it were, right? If you were, that was people like newsflash, Todd's quitting Microsoft. No, but hypothetically, if your day of performance were last day was next week, then a mass file copy by you would have a different characterization than do you know what I'm saying?
Indeed. Yes.
Yeah. But if you have previous HR findings, anyway, the corpus of data you can integrate and the insider risk management stuff. So it's very interesting.
Love it.
For me, there was obviously updates to my apps, to Azure AD Connect. Like I said, I don't want to just read the news. I'm trying to curate it. I would say that the biggest knowledge announcement had to have been Project Cortex, the knowledge mining
for sure.
of things. I have a lot of stuff that I want to know about that. I got derailed. I want to go back. The Microsoft Managed Desktop of the performance. The one thing I was going to talk about that was the Teams managed meeting room service was announced as well. Did you hear about that or no?
Yes, that is actually very cool.
So we're guaranteeing the performance of desktop with the Microsoft Managed Desktop, and over here we're basically going to say, oh, we're going to manage Teams Room, and then in a complete surprise to me, we announced a cooperation agreement with Cisco around meeting join experiences for Teams.
Yeah, and for Zoom too, right?
Yes, like that's a great user experience because people just want to join meetings.
Because we love our users.
People just want to join. People say to me all the time, I just want to join the meeting, right?
Right.
My wife went back to school for nursing, and like the different people host on different platforms, so I had to help her put on like 3 different meeting plugins, and so you know what I'm saying, like she's just like, I just want to watch these online videos and participate. Why do you geeks have to make this so hard, right? So she gets super salty about that stuff, which is appropriate because we are making it hard. It's like, oh, this exam has to be taken in this browser, and this one you have to watch in that one, and we only support this. So the evolution of it, the announcements around Edge, right? Which is amazing. If you have not played with the Edge beta, you really, really, really should. It's very, very good.
Was GA? I think that was January, yeah.
Yeah, GA is in January for it. And so, and I like that the push build gives you the beta and dev builds right now, so you can play around with the bleeding edge features, or not. I mean, I don't go to Canary. That's leading edge versus preview versus, you know, the shipping engine for it. So I'm really excited about that. If you haven't, if you click the lock in the preview of Edge, if you could cut over to content for a moment, if you look on here, you'll see that it tells you, hey, what trackers are being blocked from a given source of things. It's kind of interesting to go out to consumer services for things. Like if you go out to weather.com, click the lock, and then you look down, you'll see all the different trackers and where they're coming from on a given web page. Sometimes it's 16, 20, 30 different trackers and everything else. Other places that had visibility, you can cut back to us, but the other places have had this kind of capability before. But I just think it was so well presented and brought forward on top of it.
Oh, I love it.
Yep. And then obviously, I don't even know where to stop. I mean, look at this list of things, right? Teams Room enhancements, first line worker update. Check the big trends. Improved automation, extensibility, improved management, and data infused analytics and recommendations across the estate. That's where I'm just going to stop and say, but if you didn't check out the desktop analytics and the performance analytics around user experience and boot and the rest of it, I think, and the security announcements around MFA and compliancy and management, I think you're doing a huge disservice to yourself from a security, compliancy, and end user productivity standpoint. Right? Because if you have desktop analytics and the boot analytics and stuff deployed, then you know what's happening in your environment and you can materially impact. Did you see the stats in that? Like people are like 120% more likely to feel valued by their company if the performance of their tech is stronger?
Well, I mean, that makes sense to me when you think about the inverse, right?
Yeah.
How
it's like
unvalued do you feel when you're driving a jalopy laptop?
If every time you have to pop in to do something for work out of band and you hit the button and you're waiting like 2.5 minutes for something to happen, like that is insane. So let's reel that back.
We talk to a lot of different companies that come into the tech center, and I'm amazed when I am with groups that are super talented, high-end people who the value of their minute is very high, and they're on these clunkers with 4 gig of RAM, 8 gig of RAM, and things are barely functioning. It makes me cringe.
Yeah.
To be honest.
I got one more super tactical off the wall one that came in from Excel before I turn it over to you for the second half. Remember when we did, it's probably around episode 20 or 30. So we're at 116, by the way. Astonishing.
Let's see if I remember. I don't know.
It was Script Lab. Do you remember Script Lab?
Oh, yeah. We talked about this.
So Script Lab was the garage project that allowed you to understand the existing automation APIs and do stuff on top of that. Well, that tech has not died. Script Lab is still out there, obviously, thriving and well and doing what it does. But in Excel on the web, they've released Office script capabilities is coming in preview before the end of the calendar year. It is taking those things, and you can hit record. Remember I said eventually we're going to replace some of the VBA functionality with this kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Well, round one is releasing in Excel Online. Excel Online, very important. because the scripts and everything can be stored in your OneDrive or else, but they're also executable by Power Automate as part of a process flow.
Ooh.
So now you can basically have office automation, advanced office automation run against spreadsheets based on the outcome from a Power App or a Power Automate job.
Lovely.
Do you think that's going to be amazing when that tech comes to the rest of Office?
I do.
I do too, because now we can actually do advanced document assembly, editing, updates, reflective nature. We've had some really cool ability through the graph to do embedded components. The graph got updates around notification and all sorts of stuff. But I think if you are a VBA person from the back in the things, and you've been paying attention to Power Apps and Flow, and you're like, yeah, but there's this last mile of Office automation. Check out Office Scripts announcement on the Office Dev Center for Excel. So I'd imagine it's one, given the noise of everything around the SharePoint Knowledge Center, Cortex, and everything that might have skated by, but I think that one matters to real people. Much like boot times matter to real people, patch matters, and protecting your identity matters. PA Flow and Power Automate and Power Apps, right? The double PA, I can't do it. That's going to be hard for me. That's really, I think, a huge action surface for us. All right, so that's all I wanted to do. We only have 30 minutes. Go check out the announcements around the advanced compliance stuff and the insider threats. Look at your MFA entitlements and turn them on. And then, Mr. Kidda, you had some stuff that you had curated up as specific call-outs that you wanted me to sort of pull open.
I think you've got to drive, yes?
I do. So just because you're in a different room today. So you wanted to pull up the Power Platform environment variables.
Yes. So this one was, so some of these are small and some of these are big. This one's kind of a small, nice one, but it's in disguise of enabling DevOps and lifecycle management from a just in a better way. And this is largely what developers are doing in real life when they're going from dev to QA to prod, where I'm going to have environment variables for each environment. My app doesn't need to change, and it's just simply going to slide in and ask for whatever environments it's in version of that. So that could be things like connections. It could be just things like
I need that for my my newsfeed thing that I do, the API one where I have the abstracted flows and the newsfeed stuff. Where someone's like, "Well, how do I get this over to another environment?" Well, you kind of got to go change all that stuff. So these variables let me pipeline that, so to speak.
Yeah. Yep. So this is awesome. Go check that out. Awesome. That's really all on that one. I think that one is gonna, again, just kind of double back down on the DevOps ability of the Power Platform.
There we go.
So this one is big news. So this one is, again, kind of going into Power Automate. Once again, Flow is now Power Automate, but really RPA coming to Flow. And out of the gate, I played with this a little bit this morning. There is the ability to drive web apps as well as Windows 10 applications. Through UI flows, which
I wanted to invoke a little history here. Does anybody remember WinBatch?
WinBatch.
Yeah, you probably don't because you didn't come from the desktop side of the house. But a whole bunch of people's heads just like spun up when I said it. If you were a desktop admin, WinBatch was a proprietary. It was a software vendor that came up with this advanced automation to drive authoritative use of Windows controls. So you could build your own like click automation sequences, and you could extract data from controls. Yeah, but they were just about automation, and they were IT task automation for admins to automate things that could not be automated, detect when an installer stalls out and hit the next button. Like back before installers were good, this was how you survived. You made these automation listeners and scripts and wrappers and checkers, and you did all sorts of stuff. And I used to code in WinBatch like a demon back in the day. It's how I really learned how to code, actually, was in a batch-oriented scripting languages, because I needed to automate stuff at scale across thousands of desktops. And when you had software that didn't have, like, you have to put in the config or the IP address. I mean, I was not going to have regular
not everything is a great API, Doug.
No, and some things need to be stuffed or extracted, or the vendor won't give you one. And so for years, I used to mess around with the Windows GDI control libraries and all the COM controls, and so when this came out, this is like every bit of that tech, only polished up, enterprise, and woven into something that has a back-end process running.
Well, because that's the thing. RPA is only as useful as a good workflow engine, right? So, I mean, if you've already kind of blot off on Flow and understand the power there and the capabilities, then, I mean, I think this just is kind of a next logical extension of now, think of any app whether it's on Windows 10 or a web page, as an API into that can feed into Flow.
Screen scraping for data aggregation has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Screen scraping is part of process automation, not as long or as
Good, as
sophisticated,
prevalent. Let's say that.
as prevalent, right? Because if you think about the stuff I used to do, it was just all about static automation, right? It wasn't as part of a workflow. It was an IT admin automation layer, was how that tech was used. But this is really cool.
Yeah, and so far I think we're going to be a leader in the citizen RPA space with this. This is awesome.
Well, yeah, and because a lot of these apps run on Windows, we're pretty good at understanding Windows controls.
Yeah,
because that would be because we're Microsoft.
Cool. So as you go to the next one, I'll just kind of point out most of the stuff I'm referring to this week. A lot of this is preview, right? Because this was Ignite. So a lot of these are public preview, including this one. This one I know is going to get your
It did. I loved this. I was super happy.
Doug, what if you could? So data, right?
Let's cut to full screen on this one for a moment.
Structured data for analytics, Doug. That's enterprise data, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's not just in Word documents and emails. Wouldn't it be great if I could tell my analytics system what data is highly confidential, and then put policy around that and track what people are doing with it, and cause people not to leak data out? Wouldn't that be great?
Yes, that would be wonderful, because people don't know. They often don't know. Right? You can cut back. They often don't know what
easy to accidentally leak things or
yes.
Like that,
right? You know, my favorite, and you can cut back to the two of us. My favorite demo to show accidental data leak protection is hey Bart, if you want to come back to ME1. And by the way, Bart's doing yeoman's work producing for us backstage, so thank you. So the my favorite demo is to show someone who has an Excel spreadsheet with a bunch of sensitive information, but sensitive information is in hidden columns.
Yeah.
So the user opens it up, takes a quick glance, just has a whole bunch of columns in the spreadsheet. The hidden stuff's over on the right. You scroll around real quick, and you're not noticing that AA and AB are missing, right? And then you're like, oh, this looks good, send.
Yep.
It's the same kind of thing with reports and visualizations and data downloads and drill downs. Like, you're like, oh, I didn't know. Like, I have access to it. So
what's really great about this is surfacing up through the web interface and the mobile app, highly sensitive information. But one of the things that people like to do inside of Power BI is, of course, export their data to Excel or CSV.
Right.
This carries that label with those exports.
Yes.
Which is just as it should.
It should. Yeah. Like that's my point. Is that we're finishing things.
But Doug,
right? And connecting them.
What if then I could detect if you were not on a trusted device or a trusted network and block download of those exports?
Well, wouldn't that be nice?
You can. That's a thing that you can do. So actually, go back to that page really quick and scroll all the way to the bottom, because there's another enterprise data thing that I want to show in this post. So keep going, keep going, keep going. Right there. Look at that. All right. So what is that? That's lineage view. Okay. So this is something that we're getting good at.
Yeah. Let's cut full on this one. So here's our data lineage, right?
So I have a report, right? And I see a number on that report. But I might have questions about that number. Where did it come from? Who put it there? What were the transformations that it went through to get to that point? When was the last time that data was refreshed? Why isn't this data up to date? So I can drill in and actually go and see
the family tree of your data.
Exactly. Where did Grandpa come from? Where's the missing link in the family tree? And find those pieces of information out. So this is getting really good. So you can see this is a report that goes all the way back to like a SQL Server or a CSV, maybe even on premises that I can find this information. So this is really cool, this lineage view, and this is some more power around the kind of Dataflows capability inside Power BI.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it was just an amazing week of news, right?
All right.
All right, large models.
This one is pretty straightforward. 10 gigabytes, Doug. That's for the little guys. So we're actually now, your size of your data models inside Power BI, your cached data models, are only going to be limited by the size of your premium capacity. So you know, as big as you need to go, as long as it can fit in one of your premium capacities, you're going to be able to do. And a lot of people, if you haven't been deep in Power BI, you don't realize that data is super highly compressed. So
I do realize that because I had some giant stuff, and I was worried about it one time. And you're like, nah, desktop can eat that for lunch. It gets compressed.
yeah, I mean,
I had no clue.
this is potentially terabytes or tens of terabytes of data that are now going to be able to fit in Power BI cached models and still get blazing fast click and drag performance. So
crazy.
This is exciting. All right.
Yeah.
What do we got next?
All right. Next up was the Dataflows.
So this one, couple categories of things. Obviously, it says 50 plus new features. I'm not going to go through each one because we'd be here for 4 hours. A couple new connectors, including things like Apache Spark, SharePoint folders, those kinds of things.
Did you see the PDF file one?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Have you ever connected to a PDF file through Power BI before?
You know, I have not.
Awesome. It's pretty awesome. Yeah. The big chunk of the connect, you can see the new features this month are the data transformations, and this is actually going to be a good review. So if you're newer to Power BI, like newer as in you haven't been with Power BI for the past 5 years, maybe the last year or two, this is actually a good review because a lot of these transformations you may not even be aware of. So just like kind of reading through this blog post, because these are things that you could already do like in Power BI desktop, you're now going to be able to do through Dataflows in the web browser, which is awesome. We're lighting up data profiling in Dataflows. We're lighting up query parameterization for reusability, authoring of functions. We now have IntelliSense, so you're going to be able to go and actually start editing your M in the web browser. So this is becoming a lot more than just your kind of run-of-the-mill pedestrian data connectivity tool in the web browser. This is a full-on development environment. So this is awesome. Dataflows is quickly becoming a very mature product inside of Power BI, and I'm just thrilled about it. And I think people are starting to adopt it like crazy from what I've seen in the MTC in the last few months.
All right, Bart, you can cut back to ME1. Todd, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you see a time where it looks to be like you're starting to get to the point where you can do almost everything authoring wise that you could do on desktop on the web?
Okay.
Do you see that coalescence continuing where there are some things that desktops are just better suited for, and it comes as an entitlement for a lot of things, but do you see that continuation? I'm seeing it across the rest of the Office estate. I'm just curious how you're seeing it.
So I think there's going to be, if what you're asking is how much of the web's interface or the Dataflow interface is eating the lunch of desktop for like a lot of activities, the answer is yes. Especially when you're really trying to operationalize things. I think desktop is going to continue to be super, super useful for especially kind of prototyping and getting things going off the ground. But when you're trying to operationalize and make things more enterprisey, you're going to end up probably going back and doing a lot of those things through Dataflows for shareability and reusability. It won't be for everything, but a lot of the things that maybe you would used to do from the beginning in desktop, you'd absolutely start as a Dataflow and then, allow for reusability and chaining of these things together through different solutions for your business users.
Yeah, you and I have had this kind of ongoing discussion around, you're like, hey, I moved to Outlook for the web, right? You're mostly a browser Outlook user, and I remain an Office Outlook user, mostly because of things like quick steps, color, selective highlight and automation, like for inbox entries. And like and our jobs are different, right? I mean, as a director and a manager, I have a little different requirement for things than you do, right?
Right.
And everyone
we still get along, and we don't.
Yeah, we're fine. We can still email each other. But I do think it's interesting that I'm starting to, for me, it's starting to get blurred, right? As to, I don't necessarily need. I guess I'm heading into the camp of like you. I'm like, no, I can do almost everything I need to just through the browser.
I often go, it's funny though, for all the other Office apps, I'm traditionally a thick client Win32, person. But every time I drop into a Office web app, maybe like months later or something like that, I'm blown away at how capable those apps are becoming.
Yeah.
So I can see a day where, I'm more of a webby person for doing really heavy duty stuff.
Yeah, I think there's still some things like around animations, PowerPoint, whatever it is, that some things I don't, flows come along. I think what's nice is you can just drop down and work from almost anything you're at, where you can prove your identity and you're allowed to do it. Right? That's the amazing part,
I'm already
right?
to the point where I don't care, right?
Yeah.
If I forget my laptop or if I need to drop in and do something on the web, honestly, it's not even something I'm really thinking about. I'm just doing it. So that was it.
Okay. So that was it. It wasn't it, and we're gonna explore a bunch of these things over the coming weeks, right?
Yeah.
There'll be probably not a lot of announcements. So next week you can expect some more show and tell. Certainly from my side. How about yours?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna dive into the UI flows.
Yep. UI flows are absolutely fascinating. I'm obviously going to go a little into the compliance score, and I'll try and see if I can get a Cortex, a legit thing going for it. It's SharePoint Saturday next Saturday, so we might make next week a little more about Power Platform stuff, and I'll pick up the week after with the knowledge stuff because with prepping for SharePoint Saturday Twin Cities, which is not this Saturday but next Saturday. And so if you haven't signed up, do. Yeah, so that's all that's going on from my side. Anything from the community, from yours, as we sign off?
Oh boy, you're putting me on a spot. I'm sure there is, but wasn't prepared to answer your question. So.
Well, that's fine. It's totally okay. Yeah, I just sometimes you're like, yeah, there's always this stuff going on. Well, do check out the ak.ms/MTC live for the MTC events, the MTCs near you. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll start to really dive in on the ones we thought were important in a much more tactical manner. But until then, take advantage of your MFA benefits. Take advantage of your MFA benefits, and oh, by the way.
Take advantage of your MFA.
Yeah, that would be the lesson du jour, and continue to tweet your conditional access, your anonymized conditional access rule at us, and we'll get those stickers done.
This is Doug's phishing attempt on Twitter, right? Yeah.
So anonymized conditional.
Yeah, anonymize it, please.
Yeah, conditional access rules do not actually show your,
and your first.
By the way, these people are excluded from our conditional access rule, so target those users, right? All right, we're done. We're over. Thank you for watching. Hope everyone has a great week from the frigid Minneapolis MTC.
The somewhat less frigid St. Louis. Have a great week, everybody.
We appreciate you as always. Take care.